Greetings, Star Citizens, and welcome to Flight Deck. This is a weekly podcast about Star Citizen and other gamer culture topics. I'm your host, Linkstatic MDK, and with me, as always, is Paper Thin.
What up?
So, a lot to talk about this week. We're going to be highlighting the Mobiglas design posts that they came out with, as well as the 10 for the Chairman 52 and around verse 29. Just as a general FYI, we're not doing the Town Hall PU stuff today. Instead, we're going to have a separate one, which we're planning to come out with on Saturday. So look forward to that. And we missed streaming this last Sunday due to Paper being stuck
Ugh.
in another town because of the weather. So
Yeah,
hopefully we'll be streaming. I could have streamed on my own, I suppose, but like it's always better when you have more interaction between two people. I,
yeah, and I mean, I guess I could have ignored the people who were kind enough to let me stay with them to stream, but that didn't seem like a great idea. So
nah, that would be mean. I feel,
yeah,
yeah. Well, and then we'll also be going into a little bit of the VAT changes, I know, but I think that's actually part of one of the um,
yeah,
like around the
that's
verse they talk about it a
y-
bit, so we'll go into
yeah,
that there.
yep.
So up first, Mobiglas design post, and just so like a little behind the scenes tidbit for people, I like do notes and so does Paper Thin for like what we want to talk about, and like this one design post I think has more notes attached to it than anything else we've previously talked about.
I'm
Because
pretty
there's
sure it does.
there's just so much content that came out with it. Oh my God,
It's nuts. It's its own operating system. I
it's
don't know how
pretty
else to
awesome.
describe it.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like Google Glass plus a ton more stuff. You know,
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
everything Google promised Google Glass would be. Right? When they were
Right.
initially talking about it's going to be augmented reality and like you'll have facial recognition software and be able to like tell exactly when a person last ate. All this junk, and you're like, really, Google? Really?
And Star Citizen's like, yeah, we're just gonna have that in the game, but no biggie.
Well, in all fairness, it's a little easier to put stuff like that in a game than it is in
Oh,
real
it
life.
totally is. It
Yeah,
totally is. Yeah.
just a little bit. Oh man. So let's talk about the various parts. We've got it broken up very similar to how they've got it on the website. So we're just going to be talking about each section, and kind of going through each one really quick. So what is the Mobiglas? It's kind of this augmented reality interface is how they've built it. So you're going to have a hollow screen on your forearm, which actually will like pop up a little hollow window that people can like see if they're standing around you, which I thought was the coolest part because like
Yeah.
it's not just a window to yourself. It's a window that anybody around you can see, which is
Right.
amazing. So,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree. It's pretty cool that they have it that way, and it'll make sense later on
Well,
why they
and
have it that way.
in general, it makes sense that other people should be able to see a giant hollow image that you're shooting out of your arm, you know? It's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's kind of strange that people can't see that normally.
Right.
Yeah.
What I was more hinting at was that I think a lot of people would think that okay, well, if we're gonna have augmented reality, why wouldn't it just be in my eyes, so no one else can see it? But
Right.
I think there's reasons that make sense for the game why other people can see it. So
Yeah.
potentially.
Well, and then you also have the contact lenses, which you can use at the same time, which has a lot more of that private information that you can put in there
Right.
too. So,
Right.
you know, you've got kind of a mix of both. Some stuff that's private that only you can see, and some stuff that anybody can see if they're looking, and surreptitiously watching as you press a couple of forearm buttons. So,
Exactly.
that right alone, baller, cool. Don't need to hear anything else. I'm sold. And then they go on and talk about it for like another 20 pages of content. Um, so one of the things that they're talking about as well is you can connect to external systems. So it's like your ships, your other players, shops, vendors, that type of thing. So like you can be hanging around and going into a ship, killing aliens, being a badass, and then all of a sudden your forearm starts beeping because some pirates are attacking your ship, and it's kind of like, oh my god, I
Right.
better go
And
deal
that's
with that.
yeah, and that's stuff we alluded to in previous podcasts that we expected.
Yeah.
So we're geniuses.
Oh well, really, it's just Chris Roberts is waiting with bated breath to watch each of these podcasts so that he can steal our ideas. That
I
is my
can't blame him.
conspiracy theory for the
Yeah,
week.
I can't blame him. I mean,
Oh, we're
just
total
we're amazing.
we're amazing geniuses, and everything we say is gold. Solid,
Yes,
solid gold.
exactly, exactly.
Especially when I was talking about Redar.
That was the most genius thing
Oh
ever.
yeah, totally. Oh man, I can't even make the excuse that I was drunk. I don't know what was wrong with me. Anyway, moving on. The other player interaction kind of looks cool. They had some screenshots of that where it was like you couldn't see the one guy because he was jammed. You had a like another guy who you had a little comment that said, "Oh, this guy ripped me off. I hate his guts." You know, I kind of
Yeah.
like that. I'm gonna put notes on people all the time. So hopefully, when they're PC notes for when I'm streaming and people are watching. Don't trust this guy. He's a beep 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 beep.
Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. Obviously, that has the potential for abuse, just like Yelp or other,
Oh yeah, totally.
current comment systems do. But
Well,
I
like
think in general it'll be okay. I think the Star Citizen, you know, fan base is fairly level-headed and fairly, I don't know, what respectful. Does that make sense?
I would say that like most games, it's like 60% of the people are pretty cool, and then 40% of them are just jerks and douchebags, for lack of a better term. It's just the culture. And then this
Yeah.
game, you're probably going to be looking at more like 80% of the people are cool and 20% are douchebags and jerks. And
Right. I mean, we've all been on the forums at some point and then regretted
yeah,
it. So
yeah.
you can't get away from it. There's always those people who just can't resist.
Resistance is futile.
Yes.
I had to. Sorry. I apologize
Uh,
to everyone
that
who's now
you don't.
cringing from the Star Trek reference. Actually, I don't apologize. I will never
I
apologize
was
for
gonna
making
say
a
you're
reference
not.
to Star Trek,
Yeah, you're not one to apologize for much. So
especially when it's related to quoting random sci-fi shows that I love.
on a podcast about a game
Game
that's
that's
in
sci-fi.
space. Yeah.
Let's not look into this too deeply. Anyway,
So
moving on. Actually talking about the Mobiglas instead of Star Trek. So you've got the tag system as well that they talked about, which is kind of like a cross-reference system that they're going to have where you can tag certain things like this is a person of interest, this is a place that I like, that type of thing. I'll be interested to see that more fleshed out and see how it's going to like relate and if you can share tags between people.
yeah, that would be cool. It almost reminds me of how like Twitter works, where you
Hmm.
use like hashtags and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
where you can be like hashtag, awesome, or I don't know.
Hashtag
That's
Star
just
Citizen, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so I think it's almost like I almost like to consider it like how Web 2.0 was like comment systems and
Hmm.
like user interactions. This is very Web 3.0 where you tag things and you link things and you conglomerate things. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what they're going for here, and I like that. I do. The more I get into, since I've been kind of delving into the social media aspect side of our podcast and our whole shebang we got going on here. Like I'm starting to
Really?
understand it a little
Shebang is
better.
the term
That's what
you're.
I said.
Alright, whatever.
Hey, that's the best I could come up with.
Oh, alright.
My my lexicon isn't the greatest.
I'm
So
like, shebang? I've never heard you
shebang.
say the word shebang until now. And it's
It
weird
just
to me.
came to me.
Alright,
All
whatever.
right. Anyway, but I think it's really interesting and really cool that they're trying to implement some of that stuff. What I really consider Web like 3.0,
Hmm.
even though no one actually calls it that. I think I just coined it. But
Well, when Chris
anyway.
Roberts talks about it in a week and calls it Web 3.0, we know where he
Whoa,
got it from.
whoa. Then Chris and I are gonna have problems.
Confirmed. Confirmed. Chris Roberts. Watch his flight deck.
Chris and
Confirmed.
I'm gonna have to fly out to LA and we're gonna talk.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you're gonna get right in there, right in his face,
Yeah,
and have a
yeah.
good
You know
talk.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I'm done.
So, with the Mobiglas, let's talk about some of the in-game hardware components to it. So apparently it's made up of 14 different components. I don't think it actually said that. I just counted the ones that they listed and put 14. So that's like your power chip, your hollow projector, all these different parts that can break down and get replaced and upgraded and so forth. And with that, there's actually going to be different types of Mobiglas. So you'll have presumably some that are better for tactical use, some that are better for exploration, some that are better for shopping and money management, some that are like common but really aren't that great at anything, you know. So it'll be just as interchangeable as your weapons, your ships, your vehicles, your clothes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly how I was thinking of it.
Yep. I am right. I agree. I'm smart.
Wow.
Wow. Well, and then there for everybody who backed before we hit the 42 million mark, we're getting an Explorer class Mobiglas rig. So it's going to be kind of a visually distinctive Mobiglas called the Exo Glass, which immediately made me think of
Ah,
Exo Squad,
oh
which
my
made me
god, I missed
happy.
that show.
Oh, it was
I
such a
missed
good
that
show.
show.
And
So good.
then with that, it sounds like we're going to have some information that we get as well that about the universe that doesn't come standard as either. So you'll have a little bit more lore and a little bit more maps and stuff like that that comes in your Moby Glass at start. So
Yeah, that's
sweet.
that's cool. It doesn't give you a massive like advantage or anything like
Well,
that.
no
It's
more than like
just
owning a reclaimer at the start. It's like if you're backing early, you already have a huge advantage.
right.
Yeah. But like having a map so you don't have to bother wandering to zone A23 because you know what's there already is not that big of an advantage either because you're going to want to go there anyway and check out what's there.
Right, and like just because you know what's there doesn't mean you're not gonna get jumped by pirates when you get there, right? So
Well, and
like,
stuff is supposedly changing dynamically all the time anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, enough about that. So let's go into the individual parts that they were talking about. So there's the functionality groups. So you have Group A, which is your essential functions. That's stuff like your communications, your inventory, that type of thing. Group B, which is your advanced functions, which would be more like your map and radar. Group C, which is going to be specialized functions. So like if you have a biometric scanner, was their example. And then Group D is extra functions, which aren't really gameplay oriented at all. So it's probably going to be more like, Pong somebody makes and puts on their Moby Glass for people. Yeah, that's what I bet you there's going to be like all these little Tetris games and Pong and Pac-Man that people import into the Moby Glass that you can play and fool around with. Which is
Yeah.
weird considering you're playing a game and then you're going to be playing a game inside the game. Probably on
Well,
those long jump point lulls where
it's
you're sitting there.
it's very Minecraft then. Like people
Yeah.
build all kinds of like games inside of Minecraft. I mean, people build computers inside of Minecraft.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just that's just the way it goes. But it's cool. It's awesome. I love that they're doing this. Love it.
Yeah. Well, and then going along with that, you have damaged states for the Moby Glass because, like everything else, it can be damaged and worn and broken and so forth. So normal state, pretty much everything's usable. Then the stage below that, they're calling hurt. I don't know if they're going to keep these names. I'm not a fan of them, but I'm not gonna, you know, claim to have a
Yeah.
better idea of what they should call it.
Right.
So in the hurt state, your group B, which is those advanced function ones like map and radar, they're going to be partially disabled. So like maybe your radar doesn't work as well, or maybe it doesn't go out as far. And then your group C, which is those specialized functions like the biometric scanner, are mostly disabled. So it sounds like those specialized things are like you need to have in tip-top shape to even use. Um, and then you've got damaged below the hurt stage, where your group C, your specialized, are not able to be used at all, so they're completely broken. And then your
Right.
group B stuff is mostly disabled, so like you might have radar out to like 5 meters, where you're like, is there even any point to having it at that point? So
Yeah. Very similar to how they've explained damage states for ships already. So
yeah. Well, and then the
it's
the final one's ruined, and your Moby Glass is gonna glitch out on you, and then like really only the basic functions are available. So
right, which
and
makes sense.
Did you see what they were talking about for glitches? Actually, it sounded pretty interesting.
I kind of glossed over it. Why don't you explain?
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, a lot of the glitches they're talking about are going to be visual glitches. So, like, you'll have phasing for like your hollow images. There'll be like a displacement to them, maybe some color aversion for your contacts. So, like, stuff looks weird for like half a second, then goes back to normal, essentially. So,
Right.
like, your Moby Glass gets all messed up, and then like everything turns like off-white blue, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not good. So, is my monitor messed up? That's why I thought, like, am I gonna think my monitor's messed up the first time I get damaged and all the colors go weird?
Right.
Well, then you have zones and ranges to the Mobiglas. So this is kind of like where everything fits in the interface aspect. So you've got your zone A is your hollow screen, and they like call that your window frame. I kind of think of that like, a window that you open on your desktop.
Hmm.
And then your zone B is your extended hollow screen, which is like panoramic view on your apps. So it'd be kind of like a closer. You press something and it goes in front of your window screen, and that's what you're focused on. Um, then there's the close range augmented reality, which is zone C, which is stuff in the background. Like let's say there's a sign and like there's information text that's the place for your Mobiglas outside of the sign. You're essentially too close to have a visual on that, so you can't see it.
Right.
Um, then their mid range is like your sweet spot where everything's available. So like you're just far enough away that you're not too close to see it, and you're not too far where you're too far to see it. And then the last one obviously is you're too far away and you can't see anything either. So yeah,
Sure.
that's good to me for a couple of reasons. Gameplay wise, you're not going to be like having a screen full of just like tons of text everywhere and you can't really see anything else.
Right.
So, well, they'll have to play with it, I'm sure. I'm sure it's going to be like all of a sudden 20 people get in and then you've got nothing but like window bubbles everywhere and they're like, "Oh, well, this is too
Right.
much."
So and so is here. So and so is here. There's
Yeah.
20 people in your screen. I don't need to know this. I don't
This
care.
guy messed me over in a trade deal. This guy's got a bounty on it. Yeah, you're like, way too
Right.
much information.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I mean, it makes a lot of sense the way they're thinking about it, and you're right. They'll have to adjust it, I'm sure, but it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, and they have said I'm going to talk about it later, so I'm not going to. But they have said that you can customize that too. So what's visible. So we've got augmented reality objects. That's enhanced entities, which are real world objects and life forms. So like you can have an outline around a person or like a gun in a shop, that type of thing. That's what they consider enhanced entities. Holographic objects, which are like signs, navigational icons, and they said you can create your own hollow image of an item and put it on your Mobiglas too. So like when you're comparing guns, you have a hollow version of the gun and then the real gun you're looking at. Um, and then augmented reality labels, which would be your descriptions and names and stuff like that, which aren't really based around anything.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. I mean, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
And then we have object status, talked about a little bit. So if something's out of range at long or out of range at short, and you can't really see what's going on. Um, idle, which is considered long range, and you can see it, but you can't really interact with it. So like something that's far away that you can't really select. And then you've got selectable, which is something that's in range and you can select and it's visible. And then selected, which is you've selected the thing that was in range and visible. So, pretty straightforward.
Yep.
And then we have AR object limitations. So this was actually kind of interesting to me because it adds another layer of gameplay just to the Mobiglas itself.
Yeah.
So like one of the things you can do is you can alter stuff. So like you could alter how you're displayed to other people and give deceptive information, or maybe you sell somebody an item but you did some stuff to it first but you don't want them to know, so you alter the information. um, that sounds like could be a lot of griefing, so
Yeah.
we'll see. I'm,
Right.
I'm like, that's really cool sounding, but at the same time it could be really annoying.
Be wary of people who are just starting to sell stuff, right? Like,
Right. It's like, oh, free Mark 7 blah blah blahs. Oh, a Mark 7 for that price? That's
then
great.
it
And
blows up in
first,
your face.
yeah, first time you shoot it. And then there's also blocked content, so you can make your info not available. And they said that you could do that with a couple of different ways, like a scramblers and stuff like that. And there will be certain shops that will set up areas where they block certain Mobiglas features from being usable. So
Yeah. Hmm.
we'll see what that all involves. I imagine if you've got like a lot of bounties on your head, you definitely want to go pick up a scrambler so people can't tell you've got bounties.
Yeah, I think that's pretty logical. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then there's contextual markers. So like if you are a bounty hunter, or something along those lines. Like, really, you're the only one that cares about bounties. So, most people, if they're not a bounty hunter, won't see bounties over people's heads, but you will because you've got a bounty hunter license and you're logged into the bounty hunter website or whatever.
Right. That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
And that, yeah, again, makes a lot of sense.
And then restricted, which is faction specific. So I'm looking forward to playing like a lot of weird Mobiglas entries for like our organization and be like, this is my whatever weird thing I can come up with that's only visible to us. And
Right.
then
That'll be fun.
there'll be some that are unavailable where you just don't have any data to display at all. So, yeah.
Sure. I mean, and I assume like private org information. You can't see their stuff,
Well,
and
unless you
vice
hack it
versa.
somehow, I guess. I don't
Unless you
know.
hack it, yeah, maybe you can use the hacked stuff to do that. But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then you also have the AR basic controls, which is moving in augmented reality. So you can still move around while you're hollow things up. It doesn't stop you from like walking or running or crouching or jumping jacks or anything like that. Um, you can select, interact, but you have to be in that mid range, like they mentioned before, in order to select stuff. And you can change your filter mode, which is, you've got an auto filter focus, you've got auto filter area, filter icons, tags that you can use, so lots of different options for what displays for you when. And then you can also move your AR objects after you make them holographic objects. So, like, if you're going shopping and you want to look at like four different rifles at the same time, make it a hollow object, put it there, go to the next one, make that a hollow object, put it next to it. So it's easy to compare them.
Yeah, this is extremely in depth. I was really surprised by this part of it. Like, I hadn't
Yeah.
actually thought about this. This is really interesting. I hope it doesn't become tedious,
Dude,
where
it's
to, like
almost
I get obsessed with it. Where I'm like, no, I have to have everything here.
like
You know what I
this
mean?
top left corner is just for this bottom right
Right.
corner. Yeah. Like that's the thing
That's what
that
I'm gonna do.
that's the only thing that worries me is it's almost too in depth that it's like harder for newer people to get into. But they're saying they're
Right.
trying to make it intuitive. So hopefully it's like
Okay.
pretty obvious and it's just drag and click and stuff like that.
I would assume so. I mean, there's some pretty simple programs for like Windows and Apple that let you
Hmm.
just like kind of like drag and click and take like screenshots of stuff on your desktop and quickly put them into documents and that. So I
Yeah.
assume it'll be something like that.
Well, and then like I mentioned, there are all the filters, so they've got a couple of specific ones listed. Like there's an exploration mode, which is kind of your default, so like every object is shown on this one. Or you could do like the easy shop filter, which only shows you the items that are for sale and won't show you all the extraneous crap. When you're in a shop, there's the shipworks filter, which shows you all like the starships that are on sale and their components and stuff like that. The hangar service for when you're like customizing and moving stuff around your hangar, and then a bunch of others which they're like, oh, and you can kind of make whatever you want for a filter and add it to it. So that sounds
Right.
cool.
Right. A great list to start with. I'm really happy that they talked about allowing you to make your own because
Yeah.
that was actually something I would like wanted to be asked in a future. Like I was sitting there when I was watching it or reading it, not watching, reading it, and I was like, oh, it would be a great 10 for the chairman question if they were like, can I make my own,
Right.
AR filters or my own programs for the Mobiglas? And they basically already answered, yeah, you can. It's like,
Yeah, which
oh,
is
awesome.
yeah. I'm betting some of the best ones will be user created. I mean, that's usually the way it goes, is because users will like sit there for like 80 hours solo development just on something like this and come out with it, and it'll be so cool and user friendly and interesting.
I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to do it, but I'll totally use somebody else's hard work to my advantage.
Exactly.
Well, and then you also have the AR targeting system, which kind of was obvious, but at the same time, interesting for them to talk about.
Right.
Where you've got the cross aim, which you use to aim at objects, and then you've locked that selection, so it kind of highlights what you're selecting, and then you've got a soft selection circle around that, which is the area you can move your contextual lock without losing that selection and so forth. So
Yeah, that was
Yeah, it's like that's the least
yeah,
interesting part of the whole post. But I was like, oh,
kind of
okay,
was.
yeah,
Makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. And then you also have other AR systems that go along with that. Like you've got focus, where the longer you look at something, the more information will be displayed for it, which makes sense because it's kind of like
Yep.
you're reading more into it. There's a layer system. So if you've got like I think the example was a coffee cup on a table. You're going to be looking at the coffee cup first before you look at the table, that type of thing, because that's where your focus is. And you can kind of switch between all the items there. And then there's a density system where, let's say, you've got a bunch of items all cluttered like on a table together, and you can kind of switch between all the items that are essentially on the same spot. So like hopefully that will help where when I've dropped this pair of pants on top of this jacket on top of this wrench on top of this gun, and I want to grab the gun and it's under all that stuff. So
Yeah, that that pretty much makes sense. I mean, that's kind of how I figured it would have to work, and it's good that they're letting us know kind of like the general
yeah, before they
concept.
get 9
Yeah,
million questions and 10 for the chairman about how it
right.
works. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, exactly. I love that they're being very straightforward with it. They're being
Hmm.
very detailed with it, so we kind of really have a good idea of how it's supposed to work, and then
Yeah.
it gives us the ability to, as users, give them better feedback. Like,
You
well, I
know,
feel like it should work like this.
in general, I'm very happy with all the designs posts they come out with. Like
Yeah.
they give a lot of information and like the examples and the images that they put along with it and like the little miniature videos every now and then too really help give you an idea of where they're trying to go.
Yeah, absolutely. They do a really good job of giving us a really not only broad like strategic overview of what they're thinking, but then like the tactical,
Right. This is
details of
why.
how they
Yeah.
plan to implement it exactly and why. Exactly, you're exactly right.
Well, and then the most interesting, at least to me, was all the various apps that they were talking about that come with the Mobiglas,
Yeah,
and I wrote them all down. So here we go.
yeah. Let's see them.
MG Home, which is your customizable home menu.
Burn
The
through them.
standard.
Burn through them.
Oh, Alert Center, new notifications. There's the Easy Shop for buying and selling, Cargo Manager, where you manage your inventory, Context, which is your directory of people, Scheduler, which is where you plan missions, events, Hangar Service, expand and customize your hangar, Shipworks, which is like the holo table we have now, but hopefully doesn't suck, Skyline, which will be your galactic map directory and navigation planner, Finance, where you handle money, current balance, market data, etc., Handshake, where you make contracts with other players and presumably NPCs. The Sleeve, which is for passports, licensing, etc. Spectrum Gate, which is where they're going to have the Spectrum and the Galactipedia information. And then Smart Trade, which is where you can trade with other players. So,
Well
holy
done.
cow.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, you like that Shipworks one where it's like the holo table but doesn't suck?
Yeah, that was good because that's exactly how I feel about the hollow table right now. It
Yeah,
sucks.
that's the one that actually I'm the most interested in all of them, at least right now,
Yes.
to see
Yes.
how it works.
Yes.
I was kind of interested in the finance one. I'm like, oh, they're actually gonna have market data. So like, if you're really good at financing and like gaming the system, you could potentially make a ton of in-game money. That
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, that
yeah,
almost implies there's going to be some kind of stock market that you can
at
invest
least
in.
local system stock markets.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, which if you're smart, you can make a lot of money.
yeah,
I would think doing that. So that's pretty cool. Altogether,
and
yeah,
you
I
could
think
also
we
make
did
people lose a lot of money too if you're going that route,
well. Yeah, if you have enough money to make the market change, then if you're a market maker,
or
is
trying to
the
crash it on purpose.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in penny stocks especially, they call those people market makers who can just kind of dictate the price of the market because they have such large shares of products they can move
Right.
the price of it. But anyway, um, all of this stuff is really cool. Most of it is what I expected, and good God, can we just get something else besides the hollow table to change the weapons and stuff on our ships? For the love of
that
God,
that's what the shipworks is going to be, man.
I
So
know, and the sooner it comes, the better, because I'm sick of using the hollow table. All right.
come on,
Hey,
you equip stuff and it doesn't work and it doesn't load in
I know.
game. What don't you
Yeah.
like?
God forbid I put my Minsky 4 lasers on my Hornet and they don't
Um,
load. It just goes with
you
my,
you don't need those. They're
I
an
know.
accessory that's
Uh,
unnecessary.
I didn't want to use better weapons. Like,
Yeah,
come
that's
on.
come on. Relax, man. Just live with
Hey,
the substandard ones you've got now.
hey, why don't we go ahead and talk about 10 for the chairman 52 now?
Oh,
Okay.
okay. All right. I'll stop rubbing it in your face. So first thing you mentioned in 10 for the chairman was that they're liked doing the panel so much that they're planning to do more, which is good for us and bad for us at the same time. Because I'm like, man, there's so much content. We have to do a separate thing just for the panel. But the good part of that is, man, there's so much content that it's awesome. They tell
Yeah.
us so much.
Right. I mean, you're exactly right. It's great, and at the same time, I'm like, there is 5 hours of content from the frickin'
And
PAX,
I've
or
only watched
whatever the PU panel. It is insane.
I've only watched about an hour of it too, which means I got
Yeah.
4 more hours to watch before we record on Saturday. Which
Right. I've
I'll
watched
do
like
it.
2 hours of it,
Yeah,
and I'm still like, oh boy,
I'm
there is
pacing
a
myself hour a
ton.
night.
There's a ton in there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is. It's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about that Saturday.
Yay.
Um, the first question he got was about custom crew uniforms, which I was like, oh, that's such a good question because I didn't even think about it. And they're gonna allow like certain customizations. He's saying where like you'll have existing items, but maybe you can change like the color of it or add a specific organization decal, that type of
Yeah.
thing, which makes sense. I mean, it would be so hard to have everybody be able to make their own type of outfits, and then you've got all those
Right.
different assets. I mean, I think a little decal image and a color change is perfect.
I agree. I think that's the best compromise they can make,
Hmm.
because otherwise, if you allow people to like completely customize their own outfits, it's gonna have like boobs all over it, and like
Or weird, yeah,
right, just
yeah,
like weird stuff that's gonna be like awful or just bizarre, and it's
yeah,
gonna have to get approved, and it's just gonna be a nightmare.
yeah,
So,
and
uh,
some of it will get banned, and yeah,
yeah,
even
a
the
lot of it.
decals. I wonder if they're gonna have to ban some of them
Oh
because you
yeah,
know
they
what people are
absolutely
gonna
will.
do.
Oh god, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and then you've got next question was about the Banu and the Jean. Are they going to have embassies in the persistent universe? And he was kind of like, yeah, we totally want there to be embassies, but we're not sure if it's going to be in time for 1.0. But
Right.
they're definitely going to be Banu and Jean and Tavarin wandering around the persistent universe that you can trade with or go to a shop of and so forth. So,
Yeah, makes sense.
good. We'll have aliens. Yay. Yeah.
Yay!
And we'll be able to kill Vandal because,
Yay!
I've never met a Vandal I didn't want to kill. So far.
So far.
So far. And then next question, we had missions designed for more than one ship. Yes, which is great. So that means they are thinking, oh, we'll have the solo player content, and then we'll have the you've got a group of friends and you all want to fly your own ship content. So
When I think, I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but even beyond that, like let's say, I have a Starfarer and I accept a transport job, but
mhm.
I'm by myself. But the mission itself is contingent on someone accepting an escort job as well. So I have to wait for them to accept the escort job. So then you work with other people,
But it's not
that you don't
just
even know.
PCs too. It can be NPCs that accept that
Sure,
job, is what he
sure,
said. So you
yeah,
might be the transport for a bunch of mercenaries that are NPCs that will protect you. So
right. And you have no idea. And I think that's kind of cool. Like it, it I don't know how to explain it. It gives the universe a very lived-in feel.
yeah.
Makes you sort of just never know what you're gonna get.
Plus,
You know what I mean?
you can be like, hey, Link, I just accepted a transport job, but I also am required to have an escort. What are you
Right.
doing? And I can come over and make money too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or even like I just accepted an escort job. I think there's NPCs here, so why don't you come with me just in
In case,
case?
yeah. All right.
Fine.
Yeah, hop in my Redeemer. Oh darn.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, and then you also have the inventory question, which was the only question this time where I'm like, come on, dude, watch the previous ones. Because
Yep.
you're a backer. You should know. you
Right.
know,
It's been
he's already.
answered.
Yeah, it's been answered so many times. There's physical inventory, no endless bags of junk that you can store that magically come out of a bum of holding or whatever. I don't know.
The bum of holding.
You remember that bum of holding? Yeah.
No.
Oh, it
What?
was I forget what the system was, but it was this RPG system where like instead of a bag of holding, it was a bum of holding. So rather than like
Was
your bag of holding, which is like a
right.
portal to another universe, it was your butt instead, and that's where you pull stuff out of.
Was it Kobolds Ate My Babies or
No, it
something?
wasn't
Like,
that one. It was this one superhero and villains one, and like I don't remember. It was
oh, I
crazy.
haven't played that one then.
Yeah,
Okay. Anyway,
it was ridiculous. That's anyway. Moving on. And then you have voice packs for interactions was the next question. It would be awesome if we had Nathan Fillion and Captain Picard and James Earl Jones, and it's like, yeah, good luck in getting any of those people to do your voice pack.
right?
I thought, but at least they're gonna have a variety, so you can get like a cool robot voice, or a female voice, or a male voice, or maybe an alien voice. It depends on which ones they come out with.
Right. Well, Nathan Fillion, I can at least see possibly doing it. I mean, he did do a voice pack
For
for Halo
Halo,
Reach.
he did
Yeah.
Halo Reach, and also did the
Well, he was the
uh,
main character in ODST.
yeah, ODST. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think he even was in 3, but don't quote me on that.
He
Uh,
might have been like, yeah, you're right. He might have been one of the random like side
like,
characters, but
yeah,
anyway.
and like that Marine sounds like Nathan Fillion.
It
I
is.
was listening to him talking about an interview of him playing Halo with like Alan Tudyk and Adam Baldwin. Like apparently they were
Yeah.
played and like they'd be talking to random kids who would be like, "Hey, you sound just like Nathan Fillion," and he's like, "Why do you know what Nathan Fillion sounds like? That's creepy." Like, oh, that's so great.
That's awesome. I'd do the same thing if I was him.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Well, and then next question we had was huge time investment for contracts for organizations. So, could your organization get a contract from like a local government to be a paramilitary group like Blackwater, for lack of a better example? Um, Hopefully, a little bit less corrupt and more competent. But could something like that come along? And he's kind of like, I don't know,
Yeah, he
maybe.
wavered on it.
It's like
Yeah.
that's not a bad idea, but it sounds like a lot of work, and we got plenty.
And not only is it, in my opinion, it's not a great idea. Like, I feel
It
like you should only be able to have short-term contracts
right.
because,
Yeah.
like, the long-term ones, it just get like not only would it get tedious for you as an organization,
Well,
but
like
like I
I
don't know
would be
how you'd
fine if it
police
was
it.
like a 3 mission contract or something like
Yeah,
that.
3 to 5 missions. Yeah,
Right. But like not for like, oh, you are the go-to org for this area of space for 6 months. Then what's everybody else
right,
gonna do? You know?
right. It just doesn't make sense.
Mm,
It's too much.
yeah. Plus,
Yeah,
like it would benefit the larger organizations way more because they just have people that
exactly.
their whole job was going to get contracts.
Bingo. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, and then up next they were talking about quarantines on planets. So he was saying that they are going to have plagues and have that affect the universe. But the question was specifically asking, could you have like a smuggler who runs the plague and then transfers that plague to another planet, or would there be like stuff for your medic profession to do while they're at a plagued planet? And he's like, "Oh, those are great ideas," and I hadn't really thought about it. And I'm like, "Oh, well, now you have." So hopefully that's
Great.
in there.
Hooray! The measles outbreak. Hooray!
Oh,
Seriously, vaccinate your fucking kids. Like, I'm
aw.
sorry. I don't care. I'm just
I'm
gonna.
not gonna get I'm not gonna get political, but yes, vaccinate.
Seriously. All right. Anyway.
Anyway, then you have the next question involved around FPS dungeons and instances, and this was the most interesting one to me, because
Yes.
apparently they're like,
I
yeah,
agree.
this is gonna be core gameplay. We're gonna have missions that specifically require a team to go in and take people out and kill them and rescue a hostage or what have
Yep.
you. And then going along with that, he elaborated on the fact that like you'll also have NPCs that are your nemesis and will try and kill you because they hate your guts, or you know you
Yep.
will deal with on a regular basis. I think that's awesome. I hope to
Yeah.
have several nemesis, both NPC and PC, that go out of their way to like try and interfere with what I'm doing, and I can go out of my way to interfere with what they're doing. And I think it adds like a whole nother layer of immersion when you have stuff like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. This was absolutely the most interesting question out there for this 10 for the chairman,
Hmm.
and I really, really liked his answer.
Yeah.
Um, Not only did it seem to me like, okay, so let's like it's just you and a couple of your friends, and you don't want to deal with real people. You just kind of want to play together and play against AIs and have fun and not
Hmm.
take it super serious. You can do that,
Right.
and you can do like an instance that feels somewhat real, and it isn't it kind of isn't like WoW where you got to grind out like a
Uh-huh.
20-minute instance, and it's the same thing
Yeah.
every time, but like you have the option. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I have these instances, but at the same time I can go out into the real universe and basically create these myself, if I
Yeah.
feel like it.
And like you'd mentioned in the org contracts, is they'll have stuff specifically for organizations to do. Like,
Right.
so you've got the quote unquote raids and stuff like that that your org can be doing, but then at the same time, they're going to have the small man team content and the solo player content that you also have available, which is great.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
great.
Love this answer. Love the question.
Yeah.
Great.
It was,
Awesome stuff.
where was this question and all those other terrible questions they had for so long? You know?
On to more terrible questions.
Yeah.
No, actually, the next question isn't that bad.
Well, the next one was about the Tavarin, and essentially, where are they, and when do we get to see them, and why haven't we heard anything? And pretty much, he's like, "Well, I don't like them. They're too similar to the Jean. I want them to have their concept reworked so that I'm more happy with a variety of the alien species," which makes sense. I mean, you don't want to have a Sasquatch and then also have a Wookiee. You know, what's the difference between the two?
Right.
One's from Kashyyyk and one's from Canada.
Yeah, this made sense when he
Yeah.
explained it, because he's like, yeah, we got to get the Jean and the Vandal in for Squadron 42, so
Yeah.
the Tavaran are on the back burner, which makes sense.
And the
I'm totally
Tavaran to
fine with
me
that.
kind of sound like the coolest race, though. You know,
Oh
like
yeah,
they seem more threatening to me than the Vandal. The Vandal just kind of exists and you kill them. You know,
right.
whereas the Tavaran are like, oh man, it's the Tavaran. You know,
Yeah,
so we'll see.
yeah, we'll see.
And then the last question was about tools for organization leaders. So to me, this was interesting as an organization leader, even though it's a small organization. What can I do to manage members and fleets, and pay money or collect dues and so forth? They're going to have a web platform app, which they'll be coming out with, which they kind of have a little bit of one now, although it's not
Right.
very in depth. And then you'll have a mobile phone app as well, which and that didn't interest me as much. But
Uh,
maybe I'm at the at work and you guys text me up and you're like, "Hey, we want to do this. What will you give us as a reward for doing it?" And I'm like,
right.
5,000 UE. I don't know.
Right. This is stuff that I'm not surprised by.
Hmm.
That just kind of made sense to me. It's like, well, obviously you need to be able to interact with your org on, every platform available to you. So mobile
Yeah,
devices,
and you're not gonna want
uh,
to log
right,
in every time you want to do something to Star Citizen.
right,
That's just
exactly.
yeah,
Yep. And this is stuff that I've been kind of pushing for myself, maybe having an alternative to the hollow table outside of the game. I may or may not have suggested it
you got
previously.
shot down hard on the
I got
forums.
shot down hard.
And I
Like,
was like
people
even
are like,
trying to
no,
up
it
it.
has to
I
be
was even trying to up
in-game.
it. I commented like, "Oh, that's a great idea." Wink, wink. And like the next guy was like, "No, this is a stupid idea, and this is why." And I'm gonna pour your Cheerios out on the floor.
Right. Well, it was just like, well, the biggest argument I had against me was that people wanted it to be, if you're going to change the weapons on your ship, they wanted it to be in-game. And
Yeah,
it's like, well, but it doesn't matter if I'm doing it in-game or on the website. Like,
yeah,
it happens instantaneously regardless,
yeah.
right? Like, who cares where it's
Well,
done?
it's kind of
Ah,
dumb to like be able to equip your ship in the hangar, but not equip what's on your ship in the hangar. You know,
right.
that to me, like I get the argument, but then like you're not setting up your ships in game. You're doing that all external right now. So
Exactly.
I don't
Right.
know.
Like, okay, so your argument is, all right, well, there needs to be a certain amount of time for the ship to, equip itself because people have to go up and, attach the
Install
weapon
it,
to the
yeah.
ship. Fine, that's fine. Just
Put a
put it on
little
the website.
timer,
Say
yeah.
right,
3 minutes, 2 minutes countdown, yeah.
exactly. That's fine. Great.
You're not gonna let that go.
No, I'm not. I'm
We're
not.
gonna be on like Flight Deck, episode 228. It'd be great.
I'm still pissed about the holotape.
Even though you've been using your Mobiglas app for like forever.
Uh, yeah, Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on.
Moving on to Around the Verse 29. Uh,
Oh, I don't know what that was. That was.
I don't. I went with it. I'm not sure I agree with going with it. I kind of regret it a little
But you
bit,
went with it
but I
a
went
little
with
bit.
it. So, yeah. Well, first up, they were talking about releasing the town hall vids throughout the week, which, because this happened in the past, has already been done. So much stuff. Oh my god. And then we had the pre-VAT sale where they're like, "Oh, there's a couple of days left." And I'm like, "No, there aren't.
Nope.
VAT sale is done."
It's done.
And then they mentioned 1.01 plus the Aurora hotfix, which I think we mentioned in the last
We did.
podcast. So,
Yep.
blah blah. Then
Plus.
there was the landing gear animation fixed on several ships, which is great. So
This was a problem, but cool. Okay.
yeah, well, we're not really landing yet, so it's not a huge
No.
problem. Yeah.
Right.
And
I
then
know.
missile fuel system, which we already talked about too.
Yep.
And then I didn't know this, but apparently they fixed the thrusters on the 350R. So, or they've been
Yeah.
adjusted, quote unquote. Who knows what that means? Probably just made it
Yeah.
slightly faster.
Probably. Now, if they could only look at the damage states for the 300 series, because I've gotten actually a lot of feedback since
Yeah.
we posted our last video about people feeling like the 300 is just taking damage way too easily.
Like maybe the shields aren't strong enough, or the armor's not strong enough, or whatever it is.
Something is going on,
Yeah.
and with the 300, and I don't know what it is exactly, but yeah.
Well, let's polish our
Anyway.
pitchforks and get our lighters ready for the torches, and
Can do.
we'll wait until the next patch drops, and then depending on what they do, we'll know what we do.
Ready.
Well, and then they have the Squadron 42 conversation system proof of concept is ongoing, which didn't I say something like last week? Like, that's exactly what they'd say. Like, oh,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
This is like, what,
of course.
four of these in a row where they've said the exact same thing. It's like, awesome.
We
Stop
know.
talking about it until you have
Yeah,
something.
there's no reason to keep mentioning it every week,
Right.
and we know you'll say something
Right.
when something new comes out. It's okay. You don't have to
Exactly.
tell us.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and then one cool thing, which was new, was they have 3 more Vandal ships in concept phase, which, considering like by my magic counting in my head, which I'm completely making up, but think it's right. I think they've so far announced like 5 Vandal ships, so that would make 8.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right, we'll
Sounds
we'll,
all
we'll
right.
pretend I'm right.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. That's a good variety and good fleet. So we'll see what they are eventually. I look forward
Yeah.
to stealing one of each type and just looking at how pretty they are in my hangar.
Exactly.
And then we have outlooting code ongoing. And when they said outlooting code, I'm like, what the heck? Outlooting? And then Ben's like, oh, that's when you pick up like weapons and other stuff people drop in FPS. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Right.
Now I'm on board. Now I understand.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at first either. I'm like, what the heck is outlooting?
Which made me think, like, let's say you're up against like a team that's like gone really crazy with like equipping their weapons, and like they've got the best sniper, the best shot, all that stuff, and you kill them all, and then you pick up their guns. Now you've got the best stuff.
Yay!
So
Oh yeah.
sweet. Why buy your own stuff when you can just be a better shot and take theirs?
Exactly.
Well, and then you have concept art for Anthony Tanaka statue, which I thought it would be fun to like kind of theorize who Anthony Tanaka is, because I had no idea either. So I'm going with Anthony Tanaka is the designer of the jump drive for the Bengal carrier.
Okay. I was trying to think. I kind of just they were just like, oh, we don't know anything about this guy yet, so I didn't like pay a ton of attention to this.
Mhm.
What planet was this statue on? Do you remember?
No, I didn't write it down either, because
Yeah, I didn't either. I
Yeah.
kind of glossed over it. I saw the picture. He had like a hammer in his hand, so I'll go with he's some kind of political figure on the planet. Like he led some kind of
with a
revolt.
hammer.
Yeah, shut up.
See, I was thinking like a engineer or something, or
Hey,
architect.
hey, was Stalin an engineer? Okay, like
Yeah, but he had a
no,
sickle.
he had a sickle and a hammer, jackass.
Yes,
Well, I
but
guess
the
the
sickle
Soviet
is the
Union.
important part.
Technically, the Soviet Union had a sickle and a hammer. Yeah, the sickle's the important part.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Well, then we also have the buggy skin support implemented. We talked about the buggy skins last time, but the interesting thing
Whee!
about that is it's kind of a precursor to ship skins.
Yep,
So
that's
sweet.
cool.
I don't know if I'm gonna bother with skins early game
Nope.
anyway. I'll wait until the game's been out for a while and I want to have all my stuff look cool in a certain way, and then I'll
Exactly.
start skinning them.
Exactly.
Then we have the chat user design or chat user interface has been designed and mocked up. So yeah, you can type angry all caps to each other in game soon.
Yay.
Okay, that's kind of a standard thing, but at the same time,
Noob.
who cares?
Noob.
Just type noob over and over. This is the first thing I'm going to type ever in Star Citizen. Oh my god,
Noob.
noob! Learn to play! Yeah. Well, then you have the ships. Again, multiple Vandal ships are in gray boxing, so those previous ships, we guess about five, are now in the gray boxing stage, so cool.
Yeah.
And then the Gladiator and Gladius are being updated with a new damage status setup, which apparently is supposed to make their damage state pipeline easier and quicker.
Yeah, they didn't go into it much other than that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can streamline a process though and have less manual work, it's always good. So hopefully that will help with the bigger ships then when they get to
Right.
those. Because doing like you were saying, they were doing like individual parts and like oh man, for like an Idris or Bengal or Reclaimer, that would take forever to set up. So
Right.
that's probably why they're doing this now with those ships because they're relatively small and can test them easier.
Absolutely.
Well, and then the Bulldog has been renamed the Vanguard, so your angry
Yeah.
letters have worked.
Yeah. Well,
Congratulations.
it kind of made sense because there already is a repeater called a bulldog in the game. But
Right, but
it'd be confusing to say, well, you
there's a
know,
Bulldog coming in. You mean
right?
the
It's like,
yeah?
what do you mean? The guns on the ship or the ship itself? Well, fuck. I don't know.
I guess Vanguard is a
Yeah.
blasé name to me, just like Bulldog. Neither of them make me go, "Oh, that sounds so cool."
Right. Right. I
It's
don't
not
think
like a White
Vanguard.
Star.
Right. Right. I don't. Yeah. Exactly. I don't feel like the name itself was an upgrade. It's just you already had a gun called the
Right.
bulldog, so you can't really call a ship that, I guess, and it makes sense. I
I don't.
understand the outrage. Well, I don't know. I
I
won't want to
don't
say outrage.
understand.
I don't want to say outrage. I understand the confusion. I don't understand the outrage. How
There
about
you go.
that?
I will agree with that statement.
There you go.
I can throw my weight behind that statement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they have the sniper rifle model has had its first art pass, which made me
Hooray!
happy because I always love sniper rifles. Rifles,
Yep.
and we hadn't really seen one yet. Rifles,
Sniper what?
sniper rifles.
Rifles?
I love me a sniper rifle. Well,
Oh man.
I love me a sniper rifle.
Yes.
Yay. What was I saying?
I don't
It
know.
doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't
We hadn't
matter.
seen one, so now we know that there is one. So yay. Although we
Yeah.
kind of figured there would be one, so
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And then the gravity generator is apparently having its animation fixed. What I don't know what was wrong with it because the video looked cool and they showed it off. So
Yeah.
apparently they're fixing
Whatever.
something. And then the battle arena has received a texture patch on the station exterior, which I don't really care
Yeah.
what the outside looks like if I'm inside shooting people.
Yeah. The concept looked good.
Yeah.
So
I
we'll
mean,
see.
I get that they have to do it because they want it to look good and you're going to be able to see parts of it outside, but like I'm more concerned about the inside and the gameplay
Yeah.
and all that. So,
Exactly. But good to know. Good to know it's happening.
yeah. Then we had Bug Smashers this week, which
Yeah.
was the yeah, the Aurora Recall overheat bug, which you talked about, where the heat was no longer dissipating, and I don't even want to talk about it or care to talk about it because who
Nope.
cares at this point? It's
Right.
fixed. Now, and then up after that, we have customer service, which they
Hooray.
actually talked this week. So yeah, maybe
Instead of just like
sighed
pathetically
loudly.
putting their
Yeah,
their heads on their desk and like wishing they didn't like accept the
exists.
job at CIG.
Right. Well, and then the first thing they're like, "We're still busy. Leave
Yeah,
us alone." And your swag is on the
surprise.
way. Shipping
Eh,
info.
right, and then they had to put another sale up anyway and just like screw
Yeah.
us even harder.
Oh
Like,
man, just take my money already. God. Well,
right.
and that was it for customer service. And then we had a bunch of interviews. There was a double interview they did with Ryan Archer, who's a marketing artist, and Jenny Varner, who's a new community content manager. Ryan apparently has been there for a couple of months, but they were like, he's the relatively new, so we'll just do them both together. So Ryan apparently does a lot of their presentation and behind the scenes stuff. So like as soon as they said that, I'm like, I've caught several of his spelling errors then in those presentations. Poor Ryan. Yeah, cool. They didn't really
Yeah,
talk about anything that crazy or in depth with him. And
right.
then Jenny, it was like, oh, it's my second day, and I'm like, well, why the heck are they even doing this then? Because
I
it's your
know.
second day. You don't really have a lot to talk about. But apparently, she's going to be handling a lot of their community stuff and will be based on the Austin office. So, yeah, it's another community manager, which to me means that they realize there's so much community content going on that they need another community manager on staff. So,
Yep.
cool. And then there was a lot of talking that they did about fan interaction. And it's kind of like, yes, we get it. You love us. We're awesome. Great. But I,
Hopefully, we're on the spreadsheet
oh,
of the
I'm
podcast.
sure we're
That's
on the spreadsheet. We're probably not high on the spreadsheet, but I'm sure we're
no,
on it.
we're like
We're probably at like page 12 of 13.
right, right, exactly.
That's how, yeah, whatever.
Whatever, that's fine.
It's
We're on the
fine. We're
spreadsheet.
on the spreadsheet. That's all that matters. Aiming low, aiming low.
Right.
Well, and then after that, they did an MVP, which was Screwball, which had lists of songs and music for and by Star Citizens, which sounds cool. I haven't
Yeah.
checked it out, but I am usually a fan of like soundtracks that people put together. For example, recently I've been listening to the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack while just surfing the internet because it's a good
Yeah.
soundtrack. So
It is.
yeah, there you go. That's my 2 cents on that. And then after that, they had an interview with Ortwin Fryermuth. I'm probably butchering that name. Sorry. Who is the co-founder and vice chairman of CIG, and he handles more of like their business and legal support behind the scenes stuff, so that Chris Roberts can just sit there and play all day with awesome, cool stuff. So I'm like, man, he's the adult. you know, Chris gets to, fly ships and go, we need bigger
Right.
explosions like Michael Bay. Whereas this is the guy who's like, all right, and then on paragraph 3, subsection 12, you stated, and I'm like, ah,
Yeah, this is actually a super interesting interview. Like, this is
hmm
something I really encourage people to go out and watch because this guy is really interesting, really smart.
yeah.
Um,
And like Chris, there's like a lot to his backstory. He's
yeah.
done a lot and been involved with a lot of people, and like
Yep.
he started as an attorney, and then he went into film and became a producer, and then that's how he and Chris met. Was working on his film company while they were doing all these movies, which we talked about last time, like Lucky Number
Yep.
11 and so forth. And then he also apparently helped executive produce the director's cut of Das Boot, which I was like, wow, that's random
Awesome.
and awesome at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
is awesome. That's a super awesome movie, and I haven't actually seen the director's cut,
it's such a long
so
movie. Even the short
I know
version is so long.
it is. But now I kind of like want to get it and watch it
Just
just
because,
to like,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, and one of the interesting things to me, I come from a family of lawyers, just as a little bit of background, was he was talking about, understanding the legal cultures and the different context behind that and the rules that many different groups will have and how they're all kind of locally based and how they all interrelate. And I'm just like, yeah, I knew most of that already, but it's still cool to hear him talk about it. So I, I I'm one of those people who's like, oh, and then how do you deal with this issue and that issue? But like, obviously, he would be talking forever if he got to that level.
Right. Well, and the big issue that he dealt with was the VAT
Mm.
for the Europeans, which it sucks for you guys, but like at the same time,
Well, and he was
like it
kind of
had
going
to
to why it
happen
wasn't
eventually.
too terrible too in the video, how like they were
Right.
able to control the pricing of stuff and how it wouldn't be shifting all over the place as much. So
Right. Yeah, it made sense, and I mean, like I can understand the frustration from a
yeah,
European buyer's point of view, but at the same time, like the value added tax, like that's gonna happen. Like it's an EU requirement. Like
yeah,
you can't get around it. So
yep,
sorry.
yeah. Well, and then Ben was kind of like, "What's the strangest legal situation you can talk about?" And he's like, "Oh," and then like I thought that was so weird. Like, why would you
Yeah.
complain about your Idris moving to a frigate from a Corvette?
Right.
Like, if anything, I'd be happy. I'd be ecstatic. Oh, you mean it's a bigger ship now with even
Right.
more stuff? Cool.
Right. Somebody threatened legal action over this.
Yeah.
Like Jesus Christ, people. Like, do you have nothing better to do with your lives?
Remember how we
Like
were talking about there's that
seriously.
20% and 80% of this game?
This
I
person
think
is
we
like
know
the
which one of those.
0.01%.
Yeah, yeah. I think we know which end of the spectrum this guy was on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Crazy,
Jesus.
crazy town.
My God.
Yeah. Well, and then they also mentioned some upcoming events. There's PAX East and South by Southwest. So look forward to that. They're probably going to do some panels there and then have the content on the website again, which means we are probably going to have to do another special Saturday episode from too much
Hooray.
content. Unless it's a slow week and there's not a lot going on, but
Yeah.
chances of that is small lately.
Right. Yeah, they've been pushing content like nuts lately, and it's great. And I love it. And it's getting to the point where like one hour podcast a week isn't covering it.
Yeah,
Like, wow.
I was mentioning this to you earlier, like before we started, is like I'm glad we're doing this because it forces me to keep current with everything. Because there's
Right.
just so much that you need to look into and research that like you either need to be a listening to a community podcast like this, or be spending all your time going through every single video and looking at every little thing. So
Right, and it's great for that. And then
yeah,
like I know this game better than most people do, and you are the same way. But like what's kind of frustrating is like when people like ask me about this game, where they're like, "Wait, Star Citizen, what is this game?"
and you're like,
And I'm
how do you
like,
not know?
right, like it's not only how do you not know? It's like how can I explain this in like
A
a
short
two
paragraph,
sentence
yeah.
right, yeah, like a 3 sentence paragraph that like isn't gonna make them like roll their eyes and like like fall into a coma with like drool coming out of their mouth where they're like, oh my god, you just
All
overloaded
right,
my
all
brain.
right. Here's how we do it.
All right.
You know Star Wars and Star Trek?
Yes.
Think like that's an actual thing that you do every day
With Newtonian physics,
with
like
Newtonian physics. That's Star
it's
Citizen.
not bad. I like that. All
Yeah.
right, I'll allow it.
Okay. All right.
I like
That's
it.
my pitch.
All
That's
right, I
that's
I,
you
I
know
will accept your pitch.
Wing Commander. Well, imagine everything you wanted Wing Commander to ever do being in a game. That's Star Citizen.
Deal.
Yeah. There you go. And then they mentioned they also had a concept contest for coming up with your favorite Star Citizen store. So like a Trader Joe's
Trader
for an
Joe's.
example, or a Walmart, or
Yeah.
you know, I, I don't know. I couldn't think of anything like clever or witty for a name, so I didn't
Me
bother.
neither. Yeah, I'm not that kind of person. I can't come up with that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, it'll be one of those things where it's like after the contest is announced, and then you're like, oh, what about this? And I should have, oh, but you didn't think of it until after it was over.
right, and the winning idea will come out, and I'll be like, oh, of course, I should have thought of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I would have thought of it with like a little more flair, and it would have been better, of course. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yes. That's
yeah. That's the way it is.
that's how it is. Yeah.
Well, then at the end, we had an art sneak peek, and like, why is it every single art sneak peek is just awesome now? Like, previously it was like, oh, and we got a picture of like a gray box ship from like a couple of
Right.
angles, and here's a guy wearing an outfit with his hands at his side, and then another shot of his hands spread out, and you're like, yeah, that's interesting, that's kind of cool. And now we've got, oh, here's a full range mocap last week, and then this week it's like, oh, and here's this gun blowing this holes out of a ship, and like you see stuff
Right.
melting and all this sweet, sweet, sexy damage. Oh,
Yeah,
it was
it just goes
amazing.
to show how far along in the game they actually are. I mean, like how impressive it is that they continue to put out content and put together the game
Hmm.
at the pace they have. It's insane.
Yeah,
Like this was, to me, it was like, oh my god, so wait, guns are gonna do damage like totally different than they are right now. Like this isn't like the way things are working in Arena Commander right now are not even like, that's
yeah,
like alpha minus. It's not even
yeah.
close. Like this is awesome.
The
Like,
the
oh my god.
the way like the hull was blown in and had
Oh,
like and then
it
like
was,
the two different guns and the different ways the hull like oh man,
yeah. It
I
reminded me of like paper burning. It was
it was
so
so
cool.
good.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, so cool, so cool.
Oh, awesome. Just
Well,
awesome.
that's all the notes I had listed under Star Citizen. Like I said, we'll be
We're
coming out.
done?
We're
Are you
done.
serious?
There's so much.
We're done.
There's so much. Like my finger hurts from moving the scroll wheel down through my notes. Is how many notes we had this week. You know, did you play any cool games or do anything fun aside from watching 9 million Star
Uh,
Citizen videos?
I've been playing a lot of Hearthstone.
You've
I
been
don't
doing that
know
for a while. That's not interesting. Nobody
exactly. It's
cares.
no, nobody should care. I'm bad at it, so.
I picked up Daylight, which is a zombie horror survival game with our friend Doctor Insaniac, which we played a
Oh,
little
you did
bit.
get that. Yeah.
And like I saw a Reddit post which was perfect on it, and they said Daylight should be renamed The Floor is Lava. Because it's literally you're running from like building to building and jumping on everything to get up and away from the zombies.
So like the ground, like the ground level is like they're just zombies everywhere. It's like
Oh
how it
yeah,
works.
and there are even zombies that will like climb the buildings and move after you, and like all of a sudden you'll be like walking along, and the zombie just falls from the sky and like lands face first because it was going for you, right?
Nice.
Like stuff like that happens all the time, and it's so gory. It's amazingly gory and bloody and horrible and NC-17 style blood and gore. So
Nice.
yeah, I
Nice.
appreciate
I like
those.
that.
Yeah. And like your weapons will get damaged over time as you use them, and then you can repair them and things like that. So it's
All
it's
right.
it's pretty sweet. Most of it's melee, but you do have some guns that you can pick up later on. I haven't played a lot, so yeah.
Yeah, I
It's the,
listened to Doc play a little bit of it,
yeah,
and it sounded very Mirror's Edge
hmm,
esque,
yeah.
but at the same time, it had kind of like a simplified melee combat system
Well,
compared to
yeah.
like Chivalry.
Oh yeah, for sure. But there's also like fatigue and stuff that you have to you wear yourself out,
Oh,
and like you get
really?
stronger over time and all this stuff.
Oh,
I will say though, playing it together was hilarious because you play it on your own. It's kind of interesting. It's a little scary, especially on your own, because like especially at night, because oh man. But like when you're playing it with a friend and like all this random junk just starts happening, like your one guy kicks the zombie and the other guy hits it in the head with a club, and like the zombie spins around and falls on its face and all this weird. And like I learned a lot about myself and how very dark and twisted I am as an individual by how we would kill zombies in that game. So,
it took you that long to realize it? Like,
well, it's like shock therapy. You're like, oh man, this is dark. This is pretty bad. I need to chill out here. So,
like us playing like Killing Floor and other games, like didn't like wake you up to it? Like
I
it
didn't
took.
cackle insanely as I caved in the skull of anybody in those games, though.
Well, but they're zombies. It doesn't count.
Doesn't count. They're
They don't
zombies.
count.
Everything's fair as long as they're
Exactly.
zombies. It's like when you watch The Walking Dead, you're like, oh man, that's pretty brutal, but awesome at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's how it works. They're zombies. We can objectify them as zombies. Therefore, we don't care what happens to them.
yeah, they're undead, so it's okay.
Exactly.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Flight Deck. We went super long, so thanks for everybody who made it through the whole way. Like I said, we'll be back on Saturday, so look forward to our special podcast directed towards the Persistent Universe Town Hall.
Anyone who made it through this, you're awesome. Have a good week.